Let's go ahead and get things started. I am so happy and proud to announce George, who is joining us to present on this theme of how habituation works. My name is Ben Thompson. I'm an audiologist and founder of Treble Health. I became connected with George last year as he joined our group program, and then I got to track and work with George over time as he was promoting this relief from tinnitus, this habituation process. So with that in mind, we're going to go over some important questions. Where is George today? What were the hardest parts of his journey? What allowed him to improve? And then touching on this theme of how habituation works. Just a quick recap from yesterday. We had 3 talks: sound therapy in action with Martin, transforming tinnitus in 6 months with Randy, slow and steady with Melinda, 3 inspiring success stories, triumphs over tinnitus, and then finally I gave a presentation on the ear and brain connection. So if you were with us live, let me know here in the chat. I want to hear which one was your most interesting or favorite talk from yesterday. And shout out to Ona, shout out to Robert. The recordings here will be on YouTube, and the recordings will be available as soon as this is over. All right, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and introduce George. George, give us some context first for those who just joined or just watching. Tell us a bit more about your professional career as well as your personal hobbies, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll start with asking the question related to the Tinnitus Triumph Summit.
Sure. Well, thank you, Dr. Ben. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of your summit. I'm very happy that you invited me to be participating in this. If it can help others, then it's worth doing by all stretch of the imagination. So a little bit about me. I'm an architect. I have a small architectural business in Connecticut, and I do work throughout New England. That's what I do as my day job. And as far as my other passion, and that is fine art photography. So I do all kinds of abstract photography as well as nature, travel, and I also wind up doing a lot of presentations for the community on a whole series of topics, both regional conferences as well as local small groups. So that's, in a nutshell, a little bit of background as to who I am.
Busy man with some fun interests and very community oriented as well. So, yeah. All right, let's ask the first question. Where are you today regarding your tinnitus? How loud is it? How much does it affect you? Let's say in the last week. What kind of tinnitus are you experiencing in the last week, if any?
Okay, so right now where I am at, I would say that my perceived level of tinnitus for the sound is between a 2 and a 3. And that's only when I think about it. When I don't think about it, I'm not even aware of it. So I can pretty much go for hours at a time and not be thinking about tinnitus. So it's an automatic thing. If I give it a thought, then I can see it. I can tell it it's there, but it does not bother me. So I think I've come a long way from where I was back in April of 2021 when it all started.
Let's go over that journey. So you just give us a snapshot of where you are today. When we met, you were not in this place. When we met, you were along your journey. Tell us about the most challenging parts of the beginning. When things started to get serious, tell us what were you experiencing? And I know that part of our audience will be able to relate to those symptoms.
Sure. So I believe my story is very similar to so many thousands of other people that have gone through this. But as I said, it started back in April of 2021. I did the same thing like everyone. I went to my audiologist, ENT, series of tests, did find out to my surprise that I had some hearing loss in the higher frequencies, which I guess happens to a lot of people. The tests otherwise turned out okay. My ENT basically said, you're stuck with it. No cure. I just need to learn to live with it. I remember that phrase, and it was devastating because I remember driving home feeling pretty lousy after hearing that thing. How can I live with this the rest of my life? So the first 3 months, that was the stressful time. I would say that my tinnitus level was a constant between 9 and 10, with 10 being the worst. So it was definitely a stressful 3 months, lack of sleep, a lot of the things that many people experience, and it was not so great. And the first thing I did was, based on my ENT's recommendation, to find some help. At the time I didn't know of your group. It was, and so I found a local therapy group in Connecticut, and it wasn't easy to find, but I did find a therapist that was able to help me at first with one-on-one weekly sessions. That was my first exposure to cognitive behavioral therapy, which I will admit I never even heard of before that time. I never had a need for it. So, so with that, stress reduction techniques, all those things, and I'll talk about that later when I talk about habituation. But I took a lot of extensive notes, tracking lessons learned, and so on. And eventually that turned to biweekly. And after about 3 months, it eventually ended. Overlapping with the second half of that period is when I discovered your videos. And I was thrilled to see how many there were on YouTube even back then. I would say that was somewhere around the summer of 2021. And
Okay, I want to interject. I want to interject and ask about, okay, you mentioned earlier small business you're running, you have these hobbies, you're even giving presentations about your photography. I imagine your job requires a lot of focus, and sometimes there's stress. So talk to us about, how did tinnitus affect you day to day, hour to hour, personal or professional life?
Sure, it was terrible. It affected my focus, because primarily because of a lack of sleep. Because I didn't get my sleep, I couldn't focus on my architectural work. So fortunately, I have a good staff that I could depend on, and so they handled a lot of the day-to-day stuff, and I managed to do what I had to do minimally. But it was definitely a challenge, and so yeah, it definitely affected me. I cut back on my photography at the time, but I also learned pretty quickly from the therapy sessions that one must do what you love to do, and not stop doing that, because that is one way of helping to get better, basically.
Mm.
And
Yes, so you're painting a good picture here. Obviously, this was a big pain. This was creating a lot of difficulty. What did you find along the journey that allowed you to improve? And then we're going to touch on this theme of how habituation works. I want to present the 4 stages, which will anchor us into this this framework here. So just
right.
start talking first about, really, like, what were some things that you found or that you did that allowed you to improve?
Okay, so basically, I find that to habituate, it's a proactive approach that balances mindset, positive attitude, and integrative strategies. So the first thing was stress reduction. I found that the slow breathing, to become more calm, activating the parasympathetic nervous system. I did meditation, and I did that twice a day, morning and evening. At evening especially, it would help me fall asleep. I used apps for that, for guided type meditations, as well as focusing on the breath, body scans, all those kinds of meditations, and all about the mindfulness of being able to learn to be aware of my thoughts and separating myself from the tinnitus, not allowing it to control me. One of the things I learned from one of your meditations in the series that you did is that I am not tinnitus. It's not going to control my life. And one has to really understand how important that is, because you can't let it totally absorb your every part of your being. And so allowing one to relax, using walks in natural settings, tuning in with the sounds and sights of the natural environment, those kinds of strategies were the kinds of things I was doing in the beginning to just get myself past the fright and flight kind of stage 1. I needed to get out of that as quickly as possible. So once I started to do all this, and also the group coaching that you were doing, I was doing that monthly. I was learning a lot of education about tinnitus retraining therapy, neuroscience, and strategies for habituation, but also listening to everyone's stories and providing support. So all of that, in an integrative way, helped inform me about what this is all about and what I need to do to be proactive about letting this process go as smoothly as possible, rather than just waiting for years and years and letting it take its time.
Mm.
I was too
I,
impatient for that.
I know that when we met and when I had some conversations with you, you were always very logical and systems oriented and trying to solve the problem by learning about the different tools and avenues that can actually provide help. And I felt like that was a very comprehensive approach. We're going to now jump into the 4 stages of relief here, the 4 stages of habituation. Right before we do, you mentioned earlier there were periods where this tinnitus was really bad, quite frankly. How loud would you have rated it between 1 and 10? 1 being not a problem at all, 10 being an extreme problem. What kind of tinnitus were you dealing with in terms of the intensity or the loudness?
Those first 3 months, I was running between 9 and 10 pretty much regularly every day. Sometimes it would drop down to an 8 and I would get a little bit of relief, but it was definitely up there in the 9 to 10 range, where it was driving me nuts. I was driving my wife nuts. And so yeah, it was about as bad as it could be.
Sorry to hear that, but of course, glad that you're better. Now, what in terms of the awareness of the sound, what percentage of waking hours, daytime hours were you aware of the sound when it was a 9 or a 10? 50%, 80%?
I would say 90%.
Okay. So you're showcasing here a very serious problem, and something
Yes.
that I know our audience, some of whom can relate, of this was a persistent, ever present sound that no matter how hard you tried day to day, it wasn't really letting off. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to jump into the 4 stages of relief here. Knowing that you are now at a 2 or a 3, you used to be at a 9 or a 10. I'm sure everyone wants to know, what did you do, but to get there? You've alluded to some of those tools, and obviously finding us was a part of that, as well as other things you did on your own. Let's now bring in this reference of the 4 stages of habituation, what we also describe as the 4 stages of relief. So, did you work with your audiologist in reference to these 4 stages? And could you walk us through your experience of the timeline of how this habituation process works, please, George?
Well, I think, a lot of it was during the coaching period. And I think I was going through the stage 2 pretty much during the coaching when I started working with Dr. Tracy Halcomb, one of the audiologists. I think I was more in the stage 3 at that point. And what she did is to help me go through the specifics of each one of these and sort of identify where I was at, kind of giving me a very direct personal approach. So whereas the coaching is good in a general sense, the one-on-one it is so important that I don't think I would have achieved the type of speed in which I was able to improve without that one-on-one. So that was very, very useful.
All right, so stage 1, highest awareness and annoyance of tinnitus throughout the day, frequent worrying and anxiety, often accompanied by loss of sleep. How many months or weeks would you say you were in this stage 1?
3 months.
Okay. And then you use some tools, just touching on those again. There was some help from CBT.
Yeah.
There was some help with sound therapy, and then mindfulness. Is that fair to summarize in that way?
Correct. Yes. And so this is before I started using sound therapy. So I was using primarily CBT, stress management, meditation, mindfulness, those kinds of things. So that, and also that what that did was it helped me get back on track with my sleep. So I was able to get back to a point where I could fall asleep without any problem. And that was so important. So so that was that was maybe the next 2 months, I'd say, for stage 2 to start to get better. Also, my focus was improving. My appetite was coming back. I did lose maybe 12 pounds, but I gained that back. I also started exercising, which I didn't mention, but I'm on a 2 to 3 times a week rigorous exercising, which really makes you feel so much better. It's whether you have tinnitus or not, it's so important. Diet, cutting out processed sugar, all those kinds of things. So I was doing all these things where I think I'm healthier now than I was pre-tinnitus. So
Understood. And then you mentioned that sound therapy was a part of your toolkit. You added that at some point.
Yes,
So
once, yeah, I didn't really understand how sound therapy could do so much, but once I learned about it and understood generally how it works, basically helping the brain to put the tinnitus in the back on the back shelf and sort of rewiring the internal circuitry. I started to use the maskers on I have hearing aids in both ears. And so it has the built-in masker. So I use that a few hours a day, 2 to 3, sometimes 4 hours a day. Sometimes I just forget that it's on, and it's on for like maybe 6 hours. And other days I forget to turn it on because I'm just focused on other things. I also use the Oasis sound machine at night. I put it on every night, and it helps me fall asleep. And if I wake up in the middle of the night, it's very soothing to hear that sound machine. It took a while to find the sound that I like. It's sort of a pink noise. And so it sounds like a waterfall, and that's what helps. So yeah, I still use that every day, and that.
excellent. That was a good summary. So, in your opinion, how does habituation work?
It works in.
Talk to us about the focus, the attention.
Yeah,
Is habituation something that you do, or is it something that sort of happens when you set up the right tool? Tell us more about how habituation works in your
it's a
eyes.
little bit of both, because I use the word proactive. If you just let it sort of happen on its own, it's not gonna happen so quickly. It might take a really long time. So I think being consciously aware of the conscientious use of integrating all of the things that I've been talking about every day. I think it's especially in those first 3 to 6 months or 8 months, it's something that I was thinking about on a daily basis. And the one other thing I want to mention, which is so important, I learned this in the early therapy, and I use this even today, outlining insights. So I keep a list, and this list, basically it's a 1-page outline that describes the insights that are reminders to reinforce understanding for me as to what's going on. It also helps one to see progress.
What are those core insights for you, George? Those things that you always come back to keep you aligned on this path?
Some of them are mindful ones, such as telling myself that I will get better, that I'm not going to succumb to the T word, that it's not going to overpower me. And that's sort of a self-empowering kind of an understanding. Being aware of the sense of well-being and striving to achieve that. So yeah, mindfulness, I think for me, I don't know how for others, but for me that worked in a big way to set the mind. That starts with the mind, really. I mean, you can do a lot of other kinds of things like diet and exercise and even sound therapy, but if your mind isn't there, it just I think is more difficult. So
Yeah.
it's using that approach of positivity, that it doesn't happen by itself.
Mm. And now today, would you say that you're at stage 4 where tinnitus is rarely noticed? You can quickly redirect your attention from it, and it no longer elicits automatic negative feelings or thoughts?
Yes, I can say that. It doesn't bother me. Just looking at it's really, yeah, it's really noticed unless I'm thinking about it. I can, if I do think about it and I notice it, I am able to redirect attention away from it very easily. In fact, if I'm lying in bed at night, especially in the early months, if I was being bothered by the sound, I would just start focusing on some of the creative arts kind of stuff, goals, aspirations, planning out things that I was going to be working on for projects. And that would take my mind off of it. So it's redirecting focus. And that is easy for me to do. I have no problem being able to redirect my thinking. Also, yeah, I can easily forget about it. And there is an emotional acceptance as I'm reading through the list on the stage 4. It does not elicit any negative feelings or thoughts. So I don't have any of that. So I
Excellent.
would say I'm at stage 4. I'm not saying it's perfect, because there are times when If I'm having a little bit of a challenging day, little like a deadline for a project, then it might set itself off, but it doesn't last for more than maybe an hour, and then I can get back to earth.
Let's open it up for questions. George has shared some tactical advice. I mean, I think we can all just sense the calmness in his voice, where clearly he's doing a lot better, and the tinnitus is not, day to day causing a lot of anxiety and stress. Because to me, George, you sound very calm and in a good place of health and wellness. So I'm glad to hear that. But let's open it up for questions. You can find the Q&A section here on Zoom if you're live with us, and you can ask questions. Garrett, I know there was one question in the chat. Would you be able to get us started by relaying that question, please?
Sure thing. And hello, George. Thanks for sharing your wisdom tonight.
Thank
Mike,
you.
Absolutely. Mike asks, George, are there any lessons learned, things you would have done differently, knowing what you know now, that you can share with the rest of us?
Yes, I think I wish I had found Treble Health earlier instead of in my 4th or 5th month. If I could have found it a little bit earlier, I think that would have been a lot more beneficial for me. As far as would I do anything different? Well, let me put it this way. From beginning to the point where I felt where I was getting to a point where I was pretty happy with myself, and that was around the end of the time when I didn't have to do any more one-on-one with Dr. Tracy Halcomb. That was 14 months. So that was I know that question comes up a lot. How long does it take? And it could vary so much, but for me it was 14 months. And I think that's pretty decent comparatively. I know for someone might be less, someone might be a lot more, but the whole point is to live a normal life. And I think one thing to realize is that it is achievable. It is possible to live a normal life through habituation.
George, I know that was one of the main takeaways when we spoke, and that really stuck with me. You mentioned this phrase of living a full and productive life, and you're right, that is the goal. And tinnitus does not need to go to 0 for us to achieve that goal. What is your opinion on this in the process here? Is there sometimes this thought of, oh, I need this to go away for me to be happy? Tell me about your experience there of, okay, it's milder, I still have it, but I am living a full and productive life.
Sure, that's a really good question, because it recalls something for me in the early months where I was afraid that it would never go back to 0, and that was terrifying. It really terrified me that I'll never be normal again. And as time went on, and I went through the process of habituating and managed to get down, as I said, to a 2 and a 2 to 3, I'm very grateful to be at the 2 to 3, considering that I was at a 9, 10 in the early days. So I'm not disappointed in that. And if it never goes back down to a 1 or a 0, it's not the end of the world. I can live a normal life even with the 2 to 3, because it just doesn't bother me.
We have one last question here, George. The question is, how did you know it was time to stop using the sound therapy in your ears through the devices?
Well, the truth is I have not stopped using sound therapy. I still use it every day. I hope I didn't mislead anyone. I use it every day because I want to maintain the level that I'm at. I don't know if it's possible to go back down the rabbit hole or go down the despairing spiral kind of thing, but I don't want to let that happen. So I'm perfectly happy to continue using the hearing aid maskers. I don't use it as often as I did. Maybe I'm using it maybe 75 or 60% of the time, but I still like to have it there when it's there. But at night, it's always on, because I've just gotten used to it. I've gotten used to listening to it. My wife doesn't mind it. She likes to listen to it as well. My dogs like it. So there's nothing that says that I have to stop using them. It's actually very soothing, because I happen to love waterfalls. And as I've told you before, I've photographed many waterfalls, especially in Iceland, where there are so many to photograph. So I just love waterfalls. So
Excellent. Well, let's give a round of applause here on Zoom for George. George, our gratitude. Thank you for sharing your story, for being here, and giving some hope and inspiration to others. I think some key points in your story that habituation takes time, that it's a compounding effect, and when you put all of the tools that work together, it it can dramatically improve the situation. And to go from a 9 out of 10 for months down to a 2 or a 3 and full and productive life, I mean, that is the exact message of this Tinnitus Triumph Summit. So thank you so much for being here. If you want to hang out for 5 minutes and answer some questions in the chat, I know that folks would appreciate it. And thank you so much.
thank you, Dr. Ben. Appreciate it.
All right, next up, we have a short message about Treble Health, and then we have Tamara to present here on the summit. So just a quick recap, in this 2-day summit, this is day 2, and today we just heard from George on how habituation works. Next up, we have Tamara on tools for resilience, followed by George on his toolkit for somatic tinnitus. And then at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, we have the 7 best tools for tinnitus, which is a presentation that I created. Just a few quick words about Treble Health, who is the sponsor of this event. Treble Health is owned and operated by Doctors of Audiology. We're focused on tinnitus. Everyone here at the summit had worked with our team, and that's how we got connected, of course, and they're sharing their story. We do have something that we created for this summit, which is called the Tinnitus Triumphs bundle. You can check that out at treblehealth.com/offer. There is a 45-day money-back guarantee where you can try the whole bundle here, which is the type of treatment approach that all of our patients featured on the summit have used. You can try this out, use the devices on your ears, get connected with one of our audiology professionals. Typically, those devices on the ears do lead to immediate or short-term relief from tinnitus, so that really helps get us back on track. And it's a comprehensive program that not only uses sound therapy, but all the other tools that are available to help tinnitus. And what we found is that this leads to long-lasting relief. So if you're interested, you can head over to treblehealth.com/offer to learn more about this Tinnitus Triumph bundle. With that in mind, let's now get back to our regular programming. And we have Tamara, who's become a good friend of mine, who has presented on numerous summits, as well as just been really engaged with our community here. So with that in mind, Tamara, could you, we're gonna have Tamara, you turn on your video and audio, and then we will get things started. So Tamara, great to see you. Let's start with a quick introduction into a bit about you. What do you do with your time, family, or work? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I live in Toronto, in Ontario, Canada. I have worked for the provincial government here for 26 years, doing property assessment over the whole province of Ontario. I am married for, I got to get this right, 14 or 15 years. I have 2 boys. One is a teenager, one is 10. And right now, I'm lucky that I can take some time off to take care of myself and get my tinnitus under control. So I'm home working on me.
And now let's talk about where you are today regarding your tinnitus. How much is it affecting you? Where are you in terms of the day-to-day, daytime, nighttime effect that tinnitus has on your life?
I would say that I'm still not in a place where I can say that it's not bothersome, but I do have days where I feel like I can take a huge deep breath and I'm like, man, this is great. I can get through the day. It's not bothering me. So I'm having a little bit of a mix of both.
Mm-hmm. And that's important to mention, to share with our audience and community here, that you're not necessarily at stage 4 of the 4 stages of habituation, but you've come a long way.
Yeah.
Next I want to ask for you to explain some of the challenges or the difficult moments that happened in the past. And just the reason we're sharing this is because other folks who are in the audience who are listening may not have realized other people are going through a very similar process. So tell us a bit about where you were now that you've shared where you are today. And then we also, right after that, we'll have a special guest appearance by Dr. Ramsey, who's an audiologist on our team, who I know that you've been having appointments and sessions with. So first, Tamara, and then Dr. Ramsey will bring you in right after.
I mean, in the beginning, I think all of us kind of go through the same thing in the very beginning when you go to see a doctor or you go to a specialist and they tell you, you know, so sorry, you're going to have to get used to it. You're going to have to live with it. And I think that kind of sends you on this downward spiral because you really, I had never heard of tinnitus before it happened to me. So hearing that there's nothing that you can do, that was probably the worst part of going through the whole thing. And then after starting treatment, I think the hardest part is just the time that it takes because you want it to be gone as soon as possible. You want a snap of a finger kind of thing. And that's just not the way that habituation works. It is a process. It takes time. And you have to kind of just take the wins when you get them and know that more wins are coming, even when you're feeling that you're in those dark places. And one thing recently that I kind of realized is as the volume of the tinnitus comes down, there are other things that become difficult. So even though it gets quieter, what becomes difficult is the length of time that you've been dealing with it. So even though it is becoming quieter, after, you know, whatever it is, it could be 12 months, 14 months, 16 months, you're kind of just over it at that point. And you think to yourself, I was at a 9. If I could just be at a 5, I would be great. Then you get to 5 and you're not great still. And you're like, man, if I was just at a 3, I'd be great. So it's the length of time that becomes the obstacle more than the volume. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Let's bring in Dr. Ramsey, who you've worked with for a number of sessions on our team, Treble Health audiologist. Ramsey, what is your take on working with Tamara, and share some of your perspective here on the summit?
Hi, Tamara.
Hi.
Tamara is a warrior. You have been a pleasure to work with. I came in late in the scene. So Tamara started her treatment with Dr. Tracy Peck-Holcomb. And Tamara and I now have been together for, I think it's been a couple of months now.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing phenomenal. You really, really are. And I think a lot of the work that we are doing is just, as she mentioned, remembering the good, celebrating the wins. For Tamara and for tinnitus patients in general, it's really important that we stay within our window of tolerance. And that's something that's really, really important on her journey. So we focus a lot on staying within her tolerance. And also she mentioned a little bit about sometimes feeling stuck or feeling like, hey, you know, where's this momentum? I had it, where'd it go? So, you know, we do focus on strategies for how to get unstuck and again, just grabbing onto the tools that she does have, that she does know well, and a reminder just to stick with them, whether that's shaking up her sound therapy or getting out with her friends or, whatever's going to work for her that day. Because for Tamara, every day is different. And also a lot of focus on, we can't really anticipate each day. You know, we live now, and we don't want to focus too much on what's to come, and we don't want to focus too much on what was behind us. And so
Thank you.
a lot of coaching and a lot of encouragement, but she is a warrior.
Thank you so much. And let's now ask Tamara, what allowed you to improve? What were the tools or the strategies that you found really moved the needle?
I have a lot of strategies. The most important one we all know is sound therapy. Without sound therapy, none of the other stuff is going to work. So being consistent with your sound therapy is number one. Every single day, all day, don't skip. Once you have your sound therapy down, I think it's really important for me to practice mindfulness. And I know that mindfulness can be different for every single person. Not everybody likes to meditate. Not everybody likes to do yoga. You have to find whatever is calming and centering and grounding for you, and try to make a routine for yourself. Routines are important because with tinnitus, it's something that you can't control, but a routine is something that you can control. So try to make a routine for yourself. Do something every day that grounds you and calms you and makes you feel like you are in control in a situation that feels so chaotic. Also, I think it's really important, and it took me a really long time to get there, but to talk about it with my family and my close friends, because if they don't know what I require from them to feel good or to make me feel better, then they can't be of service to me. And one really important thing for me is keeping a journal. I like to see where I started. I write in my journal every single day. It doesn't have to be a lot, but I like to see where I came from so I can see that I'm in an amazing place compared to where I was. So those are the tools that I use on a daily basis to help myself keep pushing forward.
Guys, Tamara has so much wisdom, and from our previous conversations, I know a lot of perspective that can be really helpful from the mental, from the cognitive, the psychology side of things. So I want to hear your questions. I want to hear your questions in the Q&A. Please think of them, ask a personal question, ask a question of how did Tamara get through this process? And then Dr. Ramsey, as we're going through these, I would love for you to chime in to bring more of that professional perspective and being the audiologist who's seeing this from a different lens. So with that in mind, the first question is from Esther. Esther, thanks for asking. Esther asks, hi, Tamara, do you have any idea what might have caused or triggered your tinnitus?
I don't know for sure, but I did have a head injury 2 to 3 weeks before my tinnitus started. And that's the only thing that we can think of that was a link between the tinnitus and when it started. Was I hit my head pretty badly, and it started a couple weeks after that.
Dr. Ramsey, what's your perspective on the causes of tinnitus or the triggers of tinnitus for your patients?
Well, just to expand a little bit, for her, so yes, we think that there was a somatosensory component, but also when you go through an event like that, stress, and the event itself was traumatic, and I think that too played a little bit of a part as to knock knock, here came tinnitus. But tinnitus in general can be for watershed of reasons. There could be hearing loss, it could be stress related, related to the neck, related to the jaw, or a combination of things. So a lot of multiple reasons as to why tinnitus is here.
And Dr. Ramsey, what do you see as common causes of tinnitus for your patients?
The most common are multiple things. So maybe there's an existing hearing loss, but the patient's gone through a particularly stressful event. So stress and hearing loss, or currently on my caseload, I do have quite a few somatosensory patients where there's TMJ involvement or a neck injury involvement. Those seem to be coming up the most recently. Mm-hmm.
Next question from Robert. Robert asks, Tamara, was there a phase in your journey where you woke up in the morning and immediately checked in with the tinnitus? How did you let that go?
I mean, it's hard not to, because you wake up and it's right there. It's there as soon as I open my eyes. It's the first thing that I hear. It's there every single morning. But I think, as I was talking about before, like, routines are really important. So when I wake up in the morning, I take 5 minutes and just do a little bit of morning breath work so that I'm focusing immediately in the morning on something other than my tinnitus. And I think that's really, really important. We don't want to wake up and immediately just be like tinnitus all day long. You want to kind of start your day off centering yourself and focusing on something else other than your tinnitus.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Next question is from Julie. Julie asks, if someone has tinnitus and they want to get help for it, where should they go to get help?
Well, you're in the right place. I mean, this is it. Treble Health is it. You're in the absolute right place. Treble Health has been instrumental. I keep saying that my audiologists that I work with, they saved me. This is exactly where you want to be. You're in the right place.
Thank you. Next question is from Esther. Esther asks, did you sleep with sound therapy? And if so, did you have it on your ears? Did you use the headband? Did you use a sound machine? Did you sleep with sound therapy?
I still sleep with sound therapy now. I have my maskers in. I put my sound therapy on every single night when I go to bed. I charge my maskers first thing in the morning and I put them right back in. So yes, I did, and I still do.
Thank you.
Sleep for tinnitus patients is often a big concern. Would you like to share a little bit about your routine? You know, again, you were talking about routines. You have a really good routine for sleep, and I think that our audience would probably really appreciate hearing that routine.
It is a good routine, but it's a long routine and it might not work for everybody. But I struggle with sleep. But once I am asleep, if I can stay asleep, I'm gold until the morning. So I have an hour-long routine that I do every night before bed. I make sure, first of all, there is no phone after 9 o'clock. I put my electronics away. And I do half an hour of breath work, nighttime breath work to calm myself down. And then I do another half an hour of sleep meditation, just so that my mind and my body are both in a place to accept the sleep, to become tired enough to sleep, and to let go of the thought of the tinnitus.
Perfect. Thank you for that, because I think that's really helpful for the audience to hear. Those are some good tips. There was another thing that I wanted to ask you.
I can jump in. We have a question
okay.
about the morning routine. What is your morning breathing or meditation or breath work for those who aren't familiar with that? What does it do for you? What are the benefits it brings?
Well, because my tinnitus, it's usually loudest in the morning and then it kind of calms down. So when I wake up in the morning, I used to be really anxious. So I just go onto YouTube and just look for a 5 or 10 minute breath work. And it really does calm down your parasympathetic nervous system. You just want to focusing on breathing and focusing on your inner being. It will take your mind away from the tinnitus. So just look up a very short 5 to 10 minute breath work routine. If you're not into breath work, just do some morning meditation, just anything that is going to have you listening to something else other than just your tinnitus. It's just a good way to start your day.
We have a few more questions here coming in from the audience. Richard asks, how do you handle your tinnitus when it's at a high level and you're trying to find the right level of sound therapy to calm it down?
Yeah, that can be hard. Sometimes when tinnitus is really loud, it's hard to mix, because sometimes even the sound therapy, like I've said this before, I feel like sometimes the tinnitus wants to be heard and it fights with the sound therapy to be louder. But you don't want to be blasting your sound therapy at the same time, because you don't want your sound therapy to be just as annoying as your tinnitus. You have to find, I don't know, at that point when it's really, really loud, I don't so much focus on the volume. I just focus on finding a sound that's soothing to me and something that will allow me to calm down a little bit. And eventually the tinnitus will come down, but don't try to play your sound therapy super, super loud, because that's not going to be beneficial to you either.
And then it's okay for me to ask a question,
Yes.
Ben?
Please, yeah.
Aside from just the sound therapy, what about other strategies that you use when you feel like, wow, that, the tinnitus is a little bit more intrusive, other strategies that you use. And then I did remember what my other question was going to be too, but we'll start with that one.
So my two go-to strategies, I am an avid walker. I love walking. It is the only thing that keeps me sane. I walk 2 hours a day. I leave my house, I put my maskers in, and I am gone. I walk, I listen to the ambient noises outside, I breathe, I just lose myself. And because walking is something that brings me so much happiness and so much joy, there is something about it that just takes the edge off of my tinnitus when I'm walking, even when it's really bad. So for each person, whatever that thing is for you, find it. Find the thing that makes you happy, that even the tinnitus can't take your joy away from you. You have to find that thing. And the other thing that I do daily is I have mantras that I write on my mirror in my bathroom. And I just look at my mirror and I talk to myself. My tinnitus does not control me. I'm going to have bad days, but I'm also going to have good days. This is not going to last forever. I repeat it over and over and over to myself. And eventually, even if you have to fake it till you make it, you will start to believe it. And when you start to believe it, things will start moving. It'll happen. We just have to kind of force ourselves to get in the frame of mind to believe that we're really going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
We have a few other questions from the audience. So Ramsey, hold yours if you have more. The next question here is, what do you do if you're driving on a road that has a lot of road noise?
You know what? I don't mind that. I mean, it might be a personal thing, but I kind of feel like the noise drowns out some of the stuff that's going on in my head. I don't mind the noise so much, but maybe if that's something that bothers you, number one, keep your windows up. Number two, play your sound therapy in the car. Have your maskers in, your ear pods in, whatever it is that you wear, and play your sound therapy in the car and drown it out.
Thank you. And then Dr. Ramsey, if you want to jump in, if you have any follow-up questions, otherwise I'm ready to go with some.
I wanted to talk a little bit about, how important window of tolerance is with tinnitus patients. And I know for you, it took a while for you to start to get out into the world and to start to hang out with your friends. And so do you want to speak about that a little bit? How do you stay within your window of tolerance? How did you, start to sort of re-enter into your social life, and how that's been for your tinnitus?
It took me a very long time to leave my house. I did not want to be outside. I was so afraid that everything was going to be hurtful or make my tinnitus worse. I was afraid of noises. I became afraid of being that friend that people didn't want to be around, or the friend that people would feel sorry for. I just wanted to stay in. And as my treatment went on and as my tinnitus started to come down, I took baby steps. I would say yes just to having a coffee with a single person. I would say yes to just going over to my mom's house to have lunch with her. And then those things kind of just bloom into bigger things until you realize that the things that you were afraid of are not going to be really that hurtful to you. And even when you're out, just because I went out the other day, I was at a friend's house. It was so loud. They were having a party, and I was I had to step outside for an hour, just sit on the front porch and just take a breather. Somebody came out with me. We sat outside, and I just escaped for a little while. So you have to know what works for you. I am not going to stay in a place where I feel uncomfortable or I feel like it's harmful to me or my mindset in that moment. And if you have to go out for an hour and leave, do it. And if you have to stay home because you genuinely don't want to go, stay home. But don't talk yourself into a corner. If you really want to do something, do it. But know that you can leave whenever you want. You don't have to do everything the way that you used to. And eventually you'll get back there. So just take baby steps. Do what you're comfortable with and nothing more.
Love that. I got a few rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Rogers wants to know, is your tinnitus continuous, constant, or intermittent? Come and go.
I wish it was come and go, but it is not. It is every day, all day, 24/7.
Thank you. And Kimberly asks, did you use any medications at first as a bridge to sleep or calm anxiety freakouts?
I did. In the beginning, there were times when I didn't sleep for 3 or 4 like stretch of days at a time. And I did take some sleeping pills in the beginning, but for me personally, I didn't like the way that they made me feel. So now I just do some natural stuff to sleep.
Thank you. And then we have a question here that's asking about, talk to us about your personal perspective on when you're, say, done working with a professional, or when you feel like you can manage this on your own, but you're not yet habituated, you're not yet done. What's your approach to that, let's say, later third or later half of the tinnitus journey?
I don't know. I kind of feel like I'll know when I know, and I just don't know yet because I'm not there yet. I feel like I've been in stage 3 for a really long time, and I'm waiting to kick the door down for stage 4, but I'm just not there yet. And I feel like I don't know. I like dealing with the professionals. It just, even if it's once a month, whatever it is, it keeps me grounded. It keeps me on the right path. So I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to let go.
And then last question, this is from Tim. Tim asks, what kind of sound therapy do you use with your maskers, and what are your favorites?
Well, because my tinnitus changes every day, I have a lot of different sounds that I listen to, but I kind of try to use sounds that are similar to what I'm hearing. So if my tinnitus is making a cricket or a cicada kind of noise, I will veer towards those types of sounds: crickets, jungle, cicada, that type of stuff. If it's really high pitched, you just have to find something within the same frequency and just play it a little bit lower. But whatever the noise is, I try to find something that sounds similar and then play that so it takes the edge off.
Let's give a shout out to Tamara and Dr. Ramsey as well. Dr. Ramsey, thank you for joining. And Tamara, we'll give you the final word here on motivation, encouragement, perspective, advice you have for those who are here live. And you're getting lots of hearts and applause here.
Thank you, guys. This is such a hard thing to go through, especially because only people that don't have tinnitus cannot understand what it's like. It's really difficult. So I think it's important to find support, whether it's in the form of a support group or something like that. But it's important to have people to lean on that understand what you're going through, so that you have support in not giving up and to keep going, because the tinnitus is not going anywhere. So you have to show it that you're not going anywhere either, and that you're going to fight to have your normalcy back. So you just got to hang on. You'll get there.
Thank you, Tamara. Thank you, Dr. Ramsey. You all are free to turn off your video.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's now give an update regarding the Tinnitus Triumphs Summit. We're here on day 2, and we're featuring 6 stories, 6 success stories. We've, up until this point, shared 5. Today, on day 2, we started with George on how habituation works, and then we just heard from Tamara on tools for resilience. So with this in mind, I want to give a quick update about Treble Health, and then we'll transition into bringing in George. So I have audiologist and my brother, Dr. Garrett Thompson, here helping out in the chat. If you guys have specific questions about your tinnitus, or you want to ask us a question, as well as the guest speakers, please do let us know in the chat or the Q&A. And Garrett, if you could bring up George. George, if you're here, if you could raise your hand on Zoom so we can bring you up on the stage, that would be great. All right, very good. As we're getting that set up, let me introduce the Tinnitus Triumphs bundle. Essentially, all of the patients here at Treble Health have worked with our team. We work in a telehealth format, and a number of years ago, we asked what are the best tools and techniques, what are the best sound therapy devices that can help our patients, that lead to the best results with tinnitus. We put that all together in this bundle, and specifically here for the Tinnitus Triumphs Summit, we're offering this this treatment package, which is available for individuals in the United States over telehealth. Very effective, and it's essentially what was used by most or all of the graduates that are featured. You can learn more by heading over to treblehealth.com/offer and get started with us. Let's now bring on George and continue with the next stage, the next interview, the next success story here with tinnitus. So George, we're going to bring you on, and please, when you get up here, unmute and turn on your video. All right, very good. George, welcome to the Tinnitus Triumphs Summit, and great to see you again, my friend. Let's start with a quick introduction into who you are, what you do, family man, work, profession. Just tell us a bit about yourself for us to get started here.
Hey, Dr. Ben, how's it going? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I just want to comment, nice hair there.
Do you like it?
I like it. It's a new change. And also, I apologize for being much hairier than I am in the icon photo or the thumbnail. A bit
No
about
problem.
myself. Nice to meet everyone. My name's George. I am not a family man yet. Still a bit young for that. Voluntarily single by some interpretations, and currently working in logistics in Canada.
Great. So tell us about your story with tinnitus. First, we'd like to start with where you are today. Then we'll circle back to the more challenging, hardest parts of your journey. And then finally, what
Right.
allowed you to improve. And in particular, the theme that we wanted to highlight on for this talk is toolkit for somatic tinnitus, as we had learned that was one of the causes of your case. So tell us a bit more about where you are today regarding your tinnitus, George.
Right. So where I am today, I'm not going to say I'm 100% recovered from dealing with tinnitus prior, but compared to where I was a few months ago, I'm a whole lot better. Going outside my house when before I wouldn't, living the average life, working every day, seeing friends, taking walks in parks and everything. Whereas before, I think a lot of people can relate. I was afraid to leave the house because of noise exposure and anxiety and all of that. And yeah, I think I'm on the mend. I'm recovering bit by bit and a whole lot better. And of course, that's thanks. A big part of that was Treble Health. So I believe you asked how my story started.
Yeah, let's go back to some of the more challenging parts of your journey, perhaps those first months or the period of time when this was really taking its toll. Let's go into how the tinnitus was affecting you, and then in your specific case, perhaps a bit more on what was the cause in your understanding.
Right. So just to give a big summary on how it started when I noticed it, I've had tinnitus ever since 2015. It came up while I was in university, so busy, so a lot of stress, a lot of studies, partying, pretty, high energy lifestyle. And in the beginning, it followed basically what was a period of continuous headaches for 8 months. So I had headaches, and during that period, I noticed I had tinnitus as well. And I did what everyone did. I looked online. I thought it was temporary, wasn't temporary, and for 8 years, I basically dealt with my tinnitus. And there's been a lot of ups during that period, a lot of downs. I've habituated a few times. I've lost the habituation a few times. I've seen all kinds of professionals. Some were helpful, some were extremely unhelpful. And I've been on a lot of forums and, internet pages about tinnitus since. So, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah,
What was the question?
Yeah, you've painted a good picture there. And when things really became bothersome, when they became really intense, was it affecting you more during the day, during the night? Did it affect your work? Did it affect your relationships, your friends and family connections? Tell us about really day to
Right.
day. How did this affect you?
Okay, so in the early time of the tinnitus, like the first few years, it gave me a ton of stress, you know. It affected my sleep. It was just something I constantly noticed, especially in a quiet room, and especially when you know you're alone in bed at night trying to sleep. And I noticed it would really ramp up during stressful periods where I either was drinking a lot or had a lack of sleep or was working too hard or studying too hard. And, you know, it just added to the anxiety because, you know, tinnitus is a thing where it's like if you're doing well, you can manage with it. But if you're having a rough time separate from the tinnitus, it kind of jumps on and gives you a harder period of time. So, as I said, I've habituated for the most part in the past 8 to 9 years. But recently, in a period of time last year, following like an ear infection and a lot of stress working in a different country, it really ramped up. I started getting more anxiety about leaving the house for fear it would get worse due to noise exposure. I started feeling hopeless, as if this was going to be my new normal for the rest of my life. And it really impeded a lot of the stuff I wanted to do, which was namely to have a good job, to spend time with my family and friends, and to, you know, to basically live an adult life. So this was a few months ago.
Yeah. Of course, that's how we got connected. That's
Yeah.
how you worked with our team. And tell us about what kind of tools did you use along your journey that helped you improve? You know, we have our audience here who's live. Those who are with us live, let's go ahead and ask some questions to George. George, tell us about what did you use to improve along this journey?
So the first stuff I used in the beginning was, you know, double-edged sword. I used the internet, which was, look, it can help point you in the right direction, but sometimes you become very obsessed with what you read on the internet. You kind of miss the right direction. You overshoot it completely and kind of go into a spiral. So that was what I used in the beginning. As time went on, and honestly, as I watched more Treble health videos, I kind of got pointed in the right direction. I kind of tried to get the first step out of the way, which was like the diagnosis. So I went to an audiologist, I went to an ENT. ENT ruled things out. Some ENTs kind of put me in the wrong direction, such as Meniere's disease and other things that I simply did not have wrong with me. But it was really the audiologists that kind of put me in the right direction. So I did a hearing test, and I believe you recommended in one video, because I followed that advice, I did a high frequency hearing test, like all the way to 20 kilohertz. And so whereas before I thought I had hearing damage as an issue causing my tinnitus, I found out I actually have no hearing damage at all, because I could hear all the way up to 20 kilohertz on the really low decibels on the chart. So then, having learned that, I followed the other advice on the videos, such as getting an OAN test, the acoustic emissions tests, and kind of just being put more in the right direction of what was going on with my ears. And that's where I kind of learned all about somatic tinnitus. So somatic tinnitus caused by the muscles, by the neck, by the jaw. And also that's kind of when I decided to take a leap of faith, which I think was one of the best decisions I made, which was to get in touch with Treble Health instead of just watching their videos. I got in touch with Dr. Mark. He's been phenomenal. He kept helping me along the way in terms of anxiety and stress, reassuring me and giving me a lot of proper information on what to do now that it's likely I had somatic tinnitus.
George, we have our first question from Esther. Esther asks, what is somatic tinnitus?
Okay. So I'm not the professional here. There's a few professionals on this chat. but from what I learned, somatic tinnitus is basically tinnitus that is caused either by the neck, the jaw, by the muscles, or by the spine, which affects your tinnitus, it causes your tinnitus. So it's basically something from what I read, that there's no hearing component to it. It's not your ears causing it. It's not your nerves being the source of it, but it's basically what's going on in your jaw or neck that's affecting the nerves that go through here, and it's causing you to have tinnitus. In my case, my tinnitus is a high-pitched ringing constantly. It's not intermittent, but it fluctuates a lot. It's stronger in this ear, it's weaker in this ear. And yeah, basically after doing all these tests that kind of ruled out the ears or the hearing, the conclusion that's mostly supported right now is that it's my neck causing it.
Esther asked another great question. She asked, did you get a true confirmation that your diagnosis was somatic, or was it more of a diagnosis of exclusion? Meaning, okay, it's not hearing, not this, then it likely is somatic. Tell us about that.
Right. So from what from my experiences so far, it's mostly a diagnosis of exclusion, because there's no test that says, okay, this specific joint in your neck or this specific muscle in your jaw is affecting the nerves, and that's causing your ringing. It's not like the more traditional form of tinnitus, where they can identify a hearing loss, or they can identify an issue going on with your inner ear, and that strongly supports the diagnosis. With me, it was mostly confusing. And I feel it's going to be confusing with a lot of people with somatic tinnitus, because in the beginning, I did have that experience where whatever ENT or old school audiologists I've been to, they, even though my tests came up clear, and that was a very basic up to 8 kilohertz test, they kept saying, you have hearing damage. There's nothing you can do about it. I even had one doctor say it's the music God gave you. And I don't know if anyone else will agree with me. It's pretty terrible music. It ain't great. But things didn't add up. Like, I can hear high frequencies from machines, like my fridge emits a high frequency. It really annoys me. I generally had better hearing than the rest of my family. And again, the very basic hearing test came up as clear. So then again, I went into the forums, I went into the online chat rooms, and people started talking about this very different type of tinnitus called somatic tinnitus, which was caused by the jaw, by the neck, by the muscles. And I'm like, okay, everything else didn't add up, so I might as well check out that stuff. And lo and behold, I have jaw issues, I have misaligned teeth, I have minor disc bulges in my neck, I've had poor posture. And basically, whenever I go to a physio, they think I've had whiplash from a car accident. I've never been in a car accident. So it basically gave me a strong guess that this could really be what's causing it. But again, it wasn't really until I went on YouTube. I watched some videos from Dr. Ben. I've watched some videos from other physiotherapists, chiropractors who said they've also encountered patients with tinnitus, and it could also be an issue in the disc and your neck and all that stuff. And like I said, when I watched that video where I believe you recommended doing a really high frequency test, like all the way up to 20 kilohertz, to like rule out hearing loss and to do the emissions test and stuff, that's when it was really like, okay, it's definitely not the ears. So that's kind of when I got put on the right path of check out a physiotherapist, try to fix your neck. And also, like, there's obviously a stress component to it. Work on your stress. So that kind of
that's one of our questions from Robert. Robert asks, did the physical therapist give you specific exercises related to posture, jaw, neck? How did they manage your case?
Oh, I got a lot of exercises because I saw many different physiotherapists, and some of them never heard of tinnitus, but they were eager to learn more about it and help me. Some of them really knew a lot about tinnitus. They've experienced a lot of people, especially people with poor posture or whiplash. And then they gave me hope they could help a lot with it. So some of them favored like manipulations. Me personally, I'd never get my neck cracked. It's a source of anxiety for me. So I haven't really been going the chiropractic route. But some people, some of the physiotherapists would mobilize my neck. They would do like a really deep massage into those areas, try to get the discs loose. But for the most part, it has been exercises at home where it's like, I gotta do these throughout the day, do the head forward, the very popular chin tucks. And those were the exercises they gave to me, which personally, I feel anyone can look them up on YouTube and incorporate them in their daily life. And just before anyone asks about this, yes, I actually received a lot of improvement with physiotherapy a few months back when I was really intense with the physiotherapy. I was seeing a physiotherapist every week. I was doing the exercises multiple times a day. And to give people with possibly somatic tinnitus hope, I wrote this in my journal. There was 3 moments and they lasted a minute, maybe a few seconds, where I plugged my ears with my fingers. I didn't hear it. It came back. It came back a few minutes later, but I didn't hear it. And it gave me a lot of hope. Recently, I will admit, I've been lazy with the exercises. I've had a new job, a lot of desk sitting, a lot of poor posture on my part. I slipped on the routine, and now the tinnitus is coming back a bit louder. But I have a lot of hope that the physiotherapy will bring it back down, and knock on wood, if it's meant to be, make it to a point where I don't hear it anymore.
Yes, keep it up, George. I'm glad that you're sharing this comprehensive view on somatic tinnitus. This is probably the area of tinnitus which is least understood even by health professionals. So in our community, we know it very well. And if you don't think you have somatic tinnitus, I know that George still has tools and mental and psychological perspectives here to share that can really get us through this period. So George, really
Doctor, if I may?
Yeah, please go.
Because I want to describe my tinnitus, and so because I feel it would help if people feel that their tinnitus is very similar to mine, maybe could put them in the right direction. Because again, for me, for 8 years, I did nothing about it, so it probably just gave me what could be a longer recovery time because I never really fixed the issues in my neck until recently. My tinnitus fluctuates a lot from minute to minute, hour to hour. If I press on the top of my head, it increases. If I stretch my mouth open wide, it increases. If I move my neck, depending on how I move it, it increases in one ear or the other. And whenever I've received a pretty deep massage in my neck, my tinnitus goes screaming. Like it goes from like a 2 or 3 to like a 12. And then fortunately it goes back down. So like in my opinion, if you got tinnitus that's like constantly fluctuating from poor posture, from neck, from pressing down on things, obviously Dr. Ben and Treble Health would know a lot more than me. They're the experts. But in my opinion, I would look into, first of all, having that high frequency hearing test all the way to like 16 kilohertz or 20 kilohertz to rule out potential hearing loss. And then from then going to see a physio, because that's helped me a lot, aside from the Treble Health, of course.
Love that. And then we have a question from Karen. Then we're going to get into some advice about tinnitus management in general, how you use sound therapy and all this. Karen asks, did you ever see a chiropractor for your neck? Did you see a dentist for TMJ? Did you ever try a mouth guard if you had TMJ? And did any of that help you?
So I feel like I've seen every professional except probably like a Reiki master at this point. I'm going to start with the dentist because that's actually the first person I went to when I looked up somatic online. And this was like a few years back. So I went to a dentist, and like I said, some dentists will have heard of the link or have experience with the link between tinnitus and the mouth and the jaw. Some won't, and you'll get a more pessimistic answer. I recommend trying to find dentists who have encountered this. So right away, they told me, oh, I definitely have TMJ because my jaw muscles are pretty swollen. I couldn't open my mouth wide. And I also had impacted wisdom teeth at the same time. So I had my wisdom teeth removed, and I feel like that actually improved my tinnitus by like 20%. It's my tinnitus, aside from like fluctuations, has never been as high as it was before the wisdom teeth have been removed. and right away they put me on a mouth guard. Unfortunately, I've chewed through a few mouth guards, and I feel like they've helped, but they weren't actually like solving the deeper issue of what was causing my tinnitus. But maybe that would help other people, because I've heard, again, through the forums, that a lot of people, their tinnitus was heavily improved just through the mouth guard. Regarding the chiropractor, I saw a few early on, but it wasn't really doing anything for me. And being the hypochondriac that I am, I get a bit nervous about those sudden neck movements. Like they gave me anxiety. So maybe it helps other people. I know there are stories where chiro has been a miracle worker. I know stories where chiros haven't done anything. But for me, it wasn't really the route I went through. For me, the best out of all of them has been a really understanding and open-minded physiotherapist, someone who will look into it, and someone who's actually like going hands-on on your neck, and who's actually and jaw and saying, oh, this feels funny. Oh, there's an issue with this disc. I would try this at home and I will mobilize this now. And usually like within like 2, 3, 4 weeks, you should be having an improvement. If not like, yeah, an improvement.
That's great. I know in the United States that we have someone who's called an osteopath, doctor of osteopathy, who may be a more medical professional with a bit more medical training or experience than a physical therapist, physiotherapist. That osteopath sometimes is very good for those manual manipulations. I know that's been recommended to our Treble Health community by some professionals. Did you ever pursue that, an osteopath, or basically it sounds like you've pursued that kind of work on your neck, physical diagnosis, physical exercises. Tell us more if you have any tips on osteopath as well.
So actually, I've seen an osteopath recently, and the thing with the osteopath, the physiotherapist, and even the chiropractor, sometimes you'll meet a person they call themselves one thing, but they're really doing the whole thing. It kind of really melds into each other. They do the manual, they do the exercise, they recommend exercises at home, they do acupuncture at the same time, they do mobilization. But regarding the osteopath, every time I saw that osteopath recently here in Canada, I felt my tinnitus was lower after each session. And I don't know if that's something continuous I got to do, but I did feel like relief after each session, because they were really like stretching me out there, and I feel like releasing the pressure on my nerves. And but also because it is a hard massage on your nerves or your muscles, following that relief, I will get my tinnitus increasing above baseline for a few hours. And I'm assuming that's just inflammation. And then it goes down to a low level. And I do feel like first of all, it is expensive to see these professionals regularly. But I do feel like if I saw them continuously, it would really help a lot with recovery.
Love that. This is great. I mean, how many times can those who are here in the audience say that they've been able to hear firsthand encounters from someone who's seen, a dental specialist, a neck specialist, a chiropractor. So George, you're getting some love here. You're getting some hearts and some applause on Zoom. So we really appreciate you sharing your experience. For those who have somatic tinnitus, wonder if they do. I know a lot of people here can relate to the experience of going to a doctor, going to a clinic, and feeling like, I don't know if they really understand what I'm going through, because the reality is some of this is very specialty in terms of which professionals really know their stuff. Any other advice related to your specific journey for those who are here with us, who are looking for the proper treatment for tinnitus? But I think your case really highlights that is dependent upon a proper diagnosis as well.
Yeah, it's like as you said, and like in my experience, number one is the diagnosis, whether it's to be diagnosed with something or whether it's to have things ruled out, because that will solve a lot of your anxieties and any confusion in the beginning. Unfortunately for me, like my rule out moment, like where I rule things out, came 8 years later. everything was just in theory until then. But I can tell you, it's given me a lot of relief, and it's put me on the right path. And honestly, I feel like with my experiences with Dr. Mark on Treble Health, again, he was amazing. Uh, I would get in touch with Treble Health because they kept me on the right path, and they kind of clarified a lot of things, explained a lot of things patiently, and it's helped a lot with the recovery. And I apologize, Ben. What was Dr. Ben? What was the other part of that question?
You're doing great. You're doing great.
Yeah.
The other part of that question was general advice, whether
Right.
that's motivation, encouragement, detailed tools, things that you've learned, mistakes you made earlier. The big part of this summit is knowledge share. Those who are here live can learn from what worked for you, what didn't work for you.
Right.
Anything else come to mind?
Right. So yeah, general advice is look, I'm not going to say the forums and online Googling didn't benefit me. It did. It put me on the path of Treble Health. It put me on the path of somatic tinnitus. It gave me a better idea of what to pursue. But once you get what you need out of it, get off the forums, because those forums will keep you paranoid, keep you negative, keep you stressed. You're going to start looking at cases that basically have no similarity to you except for like the ringing, and you're going to apply that to you're not even going to apply that. You're going to project it or manifest it into your own story. Like, for example, like at some point I was afraid to chew crunchy food because I was afraid it was going to cause hearing loss. I started being afraid to leave the house. And I believe the previous guest, Tamara, had a similar experience. I started being afraid of dishes falling. I started being afraid of going to restaurants, all these little things where realistically they weren't doing any harm to me. So again, for that specific area, get what you can out of the forums and then go to a more professional and advised route. The second piece of advice, which I feel like if I followed early on would have given me would have prevented a lot of grief for me, is try to find up-to-date and open-minded and understanding professionals. I saw a lot of dentists, a lot of audiologists, a lot of ENTs, a lot of other random doctors in the mix that left me hopeless because they basically told me there was nothing you can do about it. This is permanent. You have to deal with it. Or some of them even like put me on some medication, which thankfully I didn't take because it had nothing to do with my case. My feeling is if they were a doctor before you were born, maybe look for a fresher face. And fortunately, Treble Health and another clinic I saw in Dubai, Huri Clinic, they had pretty fresh faces. So yeah, try to find people who are up to date. And the third piece of advice, and this is mostly for tinnitus overall, try to look at the people around you, like the more positive stories, whether that's like the positive cases on the YouTube channel, whether it's relatives, and statistically, you're going to have relatives with tinnitus who have it and are like going on with their lives. Because sometimes I feel like when my tinnitus is affecting me really bad, I got to wonder, is it my tinnitus affecting me or is it my state of mind at the moment? Because I've had it for 8 years and I can tell you for the majority of the 8 years, I was living a normal life, habituated life. And yeah, and if I could give a positive story to the people who, and I know I know some people will look at me and be like, good for him, I'm happy for him, it's not hearing loss. So I know some people will be thinking that. And like I said, I do have some hope for me, but if I could give a story about my dad and also his brothers, they were all veterans, they were all war veterans. This was in the 70s. This was in the Middle East. There was no hearing protection. There was no nothing. They were shooting guns for years at a time. They were exposed to grenades, to rocket launchers, to cannons. They obviously weren't protecting their ears during that time. They all forgot they had tinnitus for at least 40 years. They never thought about it. It never affected their life until I brought up that I had tinnitus. And then they were like, oh yeah, I have that loud ringing, right? And I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, oh yeah, I forgot I had it for the past 40 years. So if they can live their daily life and if they can live a happy life, raising kids, going to work, not wasting their life on being anxious about this, and they've got pretty severe hearing damage. My dad hears nothing. Like, it's very noticeable. It gives me hope. And I hope it gives others hope that they can literally like forget it exists.
George, thank you so much. I love that story. And sometimes I ask, why is George here? To spread positivity, to share the knowledge that you've learned. You've done a lot of research. You've worked with a lot of professionals. So I know that this information is being passed on to our community. It's also being recorded for anyone else who wants to go back and re-listen to this, because there was a lot of valuable information there. You're getting a lot of hearts and applause here in the Zoom, which we love. So let's
It's
all
for you,
give.
doctor. It's just a
Oh,
circumstance.
thank you. Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause, virtual round of applause, and share our gratitude for George. George, feel free to hang around in the comments for a few minutes
sure.
if you care to do so. And really appreciate you, my friend.
Appreciate being on. Appreciate Treble Health, you, Dr. Mark, and all the help that's been through, because you guys really stabilized me in a time that was pretty rough. And here I am. I'm going out. I still don't like dishes clinking. I'm still not a fan of fire trucks. I don't think anyone is. But I'm going out. I have a good job. I'm living my life.
Keep it up,
It's
George.
still there, but I'm living my life.
Love to hear that. Keep it up. All right, another inspirational presentation here on our Tinnitus Triumphs Summit. We just heard from George. And so far on the summit, we've heard from 6 graduates from the Treble Health program. Personally, this affects me so much because sometimes the work that we do is a labor of love, and meeting these individuals, hearing their stories, really just understanding their journey, their arc from very challenging, tough symptoms, resilience, strength, getting the right resources, working with our team, and then reaching the point where they're living full and productive lives, as was mentioned here on the summit. So I love that. That's definitely the reason why we are audiologists and that we decided to specialize in tinnitus with our group at Treble Health. Now is the time for the next presentation of the summit, and I'm really happy for you all who are here with us. This is called the 7 Best Tools for Tinnitus Relief. I had prepared this presentation to consolidate all the information from the summit. We heard personal firsthand experiences of individuals who've come through the Treble Health program, and I wanted to give some context for the 7 best tools that you can use, start implementing. You can also learn about our program at Treble Health in the process. So a long time ago, we asked my brother Garrett and I and our team of senior audiologists, all of us collectively having over 100 years of specialty care in tinnitus, we asked the question, what tools help our patients find relief from tinnitus? We started to think about different sound therapies, different kinds of appointments, different kinds of counseling techniques, apps, programs, guided breathing. What was actually working? What that's available today was helping people reduce tinnitus, essentially what was leading to the best results. And we put all these ideas, all of these possibilities on a list, and then we asked, can we put all of the tools that work, or the best tools that work, can we put them together in one package? And we talked about this amongst each other, thinking about different ideas, knowing that we're creating this comprehensive offering. What are the things that patients will use, they will benefit them, that they actually move the needle and reduce tinnitus? That's essentially how we came up with this tinnitus relief bundle, which is a combination of the different tools, some of them being physical sound therapy tools, others being appointments and professional service, and the final piece being more programs or self-guided on-demand courses. And more recently, we've taken all of these tools, and I've created this list that I just made here for the Tinnitus Triumphs Summit, which in my opinion are the 7 best tools for tinnitus relief. And I'm going to go over each of these one by one. These are all included in the offer that we have at Treble Health, which is created for the Tinnitus Triumphs Summit here. And this is a great time to ask some questions as we're going through these individually to learn about them. And then should you be interested, you can implement these, whether it's individually or if you like all together as part of the Tinnitus Triumphs bundle that we've created here, which we have an offer to get started with us should you be interested. And remember, the important thing in relationship to all of the testimonials, all of the interviews, the success stories that you've heard with our graduates, they use some combination of these things. So these are proven in that way, and all the firsthand knowledge that you've heard have been from folks who have been using them. So we have tinnitus maskers, we have sound machine, we have sleep headband, we have audiology expert care, group coaching, mindfulness, and a sound therapy app. Some of these we've created in combination with the leading tinnitus companies in the world. And we like to think that Treble Health is the leading professional tinnitus audiology company in the world. We've also, some of these are in collaboration with, for example, Widex, who's the leading manufacturer of sound therapy devices on the ears, in my opinion, that we've collaborated with them to create these tinnitus maskers and offer them to you. The sound machine, we've collaborated with Sound Oasis, who in our opinion is the best manufacturer of a sound machine. And then we've done some partnerships in the mindfulness department with Dr. Peter Vernizzi, who is a therapist who himself has tinnitus, who created a comprehensive mindfulness course for tinnitus. And that's a psychology method that's used to help reduce the impact of tinnitus and provide that tool for you. That is a great collaboration we're happy to feature. And then finally, the sound therapy app. This is a combination between our team at Treble Health and two prominent sound engineers in the tinnitus world, Dale Snail, who has a well-known YouTube channel and an extensive library of sounds, as well as Rupert Brown, who is out of the UK, out of England, who he created the T-Minus app. Now he's doing some other projects, and we were able to collaborate with both of those sound engineers. So I'm really proud to share this, that all these tools are either from our team at Treble Health or in collaboration with some of the leading companies and individuals. So let's go over the 7 tools independently, one by one. Here on the screen here, we can see these are called tinnitus maskers. So these are the sound therapy devices that nearly all of the graduates have used and referenced as the devices that are worn on the ears to play the sound therapy. For those who have never used them before, I really want you to give this a shot. For those who may have tried something like this before, maybe you've worn some form of device on the ears, just know that the way they're programmed is very important. The audiologist sets up the settings inside of these devices to provide different sound samples so that they can mix in with your tinnitus and provide that relief. It's not only a short-term benefit with sound therapy of, oh, they're in my ears, it's easier to be in quieter environments, it's easier to focus, but it helps reduce tinnitus long-term with this tinnitus retraining therapy method. And for those who were at my talk yesterday, you got to really learn about how the ear and the brain and the limbic system, that psychological network, they really all come together to aid in this habituation towards relief. That's the first piece here of the 7 best tools, the pair of the tinnitus maskers. And remember that these are what we included in our tinnitus relief bundle. So number 2 is that sound machine. This is in collaboration with Sound Oasis, who's a manufacturer of this device. Just after years, it became clear that this sound machine is the superior choice because it has sounds that are really designed for tinnitus. This does not rely on Bluetooth. That's an important factor. It has about 20 sounds inside of the device. We like to use this during daytime hours or potentially in the evening as well for those who fall asleep. We heard from George, the first talk of today, saying that Sound Oasis is what he uses to fall asleep every night. The third best tool that I wanted to describe, and this is in no particular order. This is not a hierarchy. I'm saying these are the 7 best tools. I recommend using them all together. This sleep headband, if you have tinnitus, it's probably more noticeable in the evening hours, and a majority of people do hear their tinnitus when they fall asleep. This sleep headband, it goes just over the ears and it has some thin, has a thin speaker alongside the headband. that connects through Bluetooth, so you can play your favorite sound therapies through a Bluetooth device, whether that be pink noise, natural water sounds, etc. And you can have that thin speaker alongside the ear, so you can fall and drift off asleep without really noticing the tinnitus as much. So that's how this sleep headband comes in handy, and it's useful for most individuals to at least have to use as needed. In reference to the pair of the tinnitus maskers, we know that it takes some time before tinnitus can reduce. We know this is not a days or weeks type problem and solution, but trust me when I say that for individuals like Steve on the screen here, after using the tinnitus maskers, these devices here, after using those on the ears for about 4 months, he noticed that his tinnitus went from a 5 or a 6 out of 10 volume down to a 1 or a 2. So that's about an 80% improvement. And although that's not bringing the tinnitus completely to zero, we know that an 80% improvement is great in the tinnitus world. So this is the kind of goal that we have for each of you to habituate, reduce tinnitus significantly, and live a full and productive life. It also showed that Bubba mentioned that within 3 months, he basically habituated. So this means that, you know, it's distribution. Some folks are showing significant signs of improvement at 3 months, and they're basically done with the program. Other folks need some more time of using the sound therapy, as Tamara and George from our first talk had mentioned, that it took them more than 6 months to reach their goal. But within weeks and within months, they're showing significant results. So wanted to touch base on that. All right, our number 4 of the next best tool that I wanted to mention is the audiology expert care. Hopefully you've learned today from various talks. George, who just presented, Tamara, as well as our speakers yesterday, all mentioned their audiologists that they worked with on our team. And it was also mentioned, if you listen closely, that many other doctors didn't have the kind of comprehensive knowledge, or they didn't work in the kind of system that was designed for someone with tinnitus. But here at our team, we created Treble Health for the individual with tinnitus, and we've always adapted our offering to be the highest quality, most cutting edge available. So getting connected with an audiologist who understands the ins and outs of tinnitus, has worked with hundreds of people before, that can give you the tools and techniques that are most likely to succeed. This is something I see as being a big differentiator in what we offer, and something that I would like for you to consider, whether it's with us or someone like us, just working with a true audiology expert team. At Treble Health, for the last 3 years, I've been hosting this group coaching program, and it started with just me and about 10 individuals on a Zoom call. These are people who had followed me from the early days of our YouTube channel, and we've been hosting it monthly for 3 years. You can imagine how it's evolved and how it's really transformed into this thriving community. But here's the really fascinating thing about this. It's rare that someone's staying in the group for longer than 4 or 5 months. And what that shows me is that there's a period of time of training, learning the tools, learning the techniques, having that community support, asking questions, and then individuals are able to manage this condition on their own. And that's ultimately the goal, is to get someone to the point where they're doing a lot better, and they're going to self-manage this until they reach that stage 4 of relief, that until they're done with the treatment altogether. But for a lot of this, the individual is able to self-manage. Until that point, this group coaching resource is great. Quite frankly, most people feel pretty alone, and there's not many individuals in their friends or family network that have gone through this type of challenging tinnitus. Our group coaching program is a positive peer-to-peer group that is led by myself and our team of audiologists. The feedback we get is incredible. So I recommend this as a tool. If you haven't tried this, if you want to use our program at Treble Health for the group coaching, then you're more than welcome to do so. All right, so tool number 6, this is mindfulness. Sometimes mindfulness means guided breathing, relaxation practices, staying present. I like to describe it as not letting the mind get the best of us, not letting these automatic negative thoughts or this anxiety or worry or the fight or flight, not control us. By cultivating the skill of awareness of the mind, research as well as many individual stories have shown that mindfulness is a valuable tool. We heard from multiple people here on the summit, multiple guests, that learning mindfulness, doing guided breathing was an important part of their success. We teamed up with Dr. Peter Vernacey, who is a licensed therapist, as well as an individual who he himself has challenging tinnitus, very bothersome tinnitus that he managed with mindfulness. So for us, he created 2 total courses that have 18 total lessons, and it's a comprehensive guided audio course to learn mindfulness for tinnitus. We reached out to him and said, "Hey, Peter, you're one of the best mindfulness for tinnitus teachers. Can you make something for Treble Health?" And he did, and we have that in our web app, which you can see on the screen here, at the screenshot on the phone there. So that's available, and it's available right now. We include it in our bundle. Our community really enjoys it, and that's something that you can use to practice the mindfulness. Finally, tool number 7 that I want you to consider is a good sound therapy app. Now, with the tinnitus maskers on the ears, you won't rely on Bluetooth to have the sound therapy. That's an important point. But there are other times when you may want an app or some form of a mobile version of sound therapy that you may just have on your phone to play when you're in a quiet room, or depending on the situation, you might want to play that through Bluetooth on whatever device you're in. So this is at Treble Health, we have a web app. It's not in the Google Play Store. It's not in the App Store as of this moment. You're able to access it on the internet on your phone. And we've put together the leading sound therapy tracks. Like I said, this has been in collaboration with Dale Snail, who has been a sound engineer focusing on tinnitus for a number of years, as well as Rupert Brown, who created the app Team Minus. So again, we reached out to the best sound engineers that we knew in the tinnitus community, and we collaborated on something that has been very positive. So having the sound therapy app is another way to follow the sound therapy guidelines and the protocol. See some great questions in the chat. The Q&A is definitely lighting up, and I see that Dr. Garrett and the chat are staying very busy. So love that. I'm going to transition here into the next part of the presentation. What did we do with all of these tools when we came together and created this essentially comprehensive program, this robust kit of different tools and techniques that have been shown to reduce tinnitus? We decided to put all of the tools in one package. And that is the Tinnitus Triumphs bundle. We also refer to this on our website as the Tinnitus Relief Bundle. Essentially, it's everything that you just learned about, all 7 of those tools put together in a structured bundle and program where if you work with Treble Health, we're able to teach you how to use all these tools, guide you through this program, and get you to the point where you can graduate from the program successfully. That's definitely our goal. Does it work? How effective is it? We had a research study of 247 patients, and we measured the tinnitus functional index at the beginning of treatment, 3 months after starting, and then 6 months after starting. You can see there's a dotted line on the screen here, which signifies the significant reduction level. And at the 3-month mark, and that's 13 points, at the 3-month mark, the average reduction for our 247 patients was 20 points. And then for the group that had completed the follow-up study at 6 months, the average reduction continued even further down to 25 points. Ask tinnitus specialists what is this is an amazing result. I do want to give some context here because a number on the screen doesn't necessarily mean that much to you. But like I had mentioned earlier, the average experience, in my opinion, from this may be something like, I started as a 6 out of 10, 3 months in, I am a 4 out of 10, 6 months in, I'm a 2 or a 3 out of 10. So that's the kind of improvement that we're talking about, and that affects the awareness of tinnitus, that most often affects the volume as well. Here's a summary of what's included in our Tinnitus Triumphs bundle. We have the pair of the tinnitus maskers. That's the collaboration with Widex, the device manufacturer for tinnitus. Those also have the Sound Relax Zen tones, which we found to be overall the most effective for our patients. The second piece of the bundle here is the Sound Machine in collaboration with Sound Oasis. The third piece of the bundle is the sleep headband, which we have. The fourth piece of the bundle is the 5 audiology expert care appointments. Those are via telehealth. This whole system works via telehealth. We send the devices to your home. We program them based on your hearing, and we customize them depending on which sounds you respond best to in terms of tinnitus relief and sound therapy. The audiology expert appointments are partly programming the sound therapy devices, showing you how to use everything in the bundle, but also guiding you through the anxiety, stress, tinnitus relationship, how to get out of the fight or flight response. What are the tools and techniques that you should learn and practice? We're going to keep you accountable for that and make sure we track your progress over time. Number 5 here in the bundle is the group coaching program. You get access to this. It happens every 2 weeks. All Treble Health patients are invited. It's very interactive. You get to ask questions, give updates, ask questions to me and our group. So we like to offer that as well as another touch point. Number 6 in the bundle is the mindfulness course. Like I said, 2 full courses that were specially created for the Treble Health community by Dr. Vernese, focusing on mindfulness for tinnitus. Excellent course, something that is within our web app. And then lastly, again, that tool, a sound therapy app, some form of an on-demand sound therapy tool on your phone can be beneficial. So inside of our web app, we have this sound therapy library, and that's in collaboration with those sound engineers. If you are not already working with Treble Health and you're interested in getting started, you can do so. The cost is $262 per month for 12 months at 0% interest. There is a 45-day no-risk trial period. So if you are on the fence or you want to give this a shot, I'd recommend doing so. I like to say that you have nothing to lose and a lot to gain. The 45-day period, if for any reason you're not satisfied, there is a 100% money-back guarantee. And again, this is for the Tinnitus Triumphs bundle that we've created here, honoring these success stories that have come through using this very same bundle. How it works is we would ship the devices to your house. They would arrive in 5 to 7 days, and then we would onboard you, connect you with one of our specialists for the appointments, and you'd be able to use this whole system for 45 days, making sure it's working before you fully commit to saying yes. If you need hearing clarity, if you have tinnitus with some problems with hearing, then there is an option to add hearing clarity for $90 a month for the 12-month period. When you sign up, you'll get an onboarding call with our team where we can help you understand whether you need just the primary bundle or if you do need some help with hearing clarity as well. So if you're ready to get started, you can head over to treblehealth.com/offer. We're going to drop that link in the chat. And we're here now to answer your questions, provide the tools, make sure to give you the chance to work with our team and become a graduate. And we would just, again, say thank you to all of the success stories who shared their individual journey. We're here offering the very same program that they used, which you can work with our team at Treble Health to get. I'm going to be here as well as my brother Garrett answering questions. I'm going to put a timer on the top left of this screen. So we have this offer that's available. I'm going to be here until the end of the timer to answer questions and engage with you all here who are live. So let's get started by answering any questions that come up. And just a reminder that if you are ready to get started, if you want to confirm the bundle here, take advantage of this offer. This is a discounted offer. It's more affordable than it typically is. We created something special for the Tinnitus Triumphs Summit. You can head over to treblehealth.com/offer, and we'll make sure that link is in the chat. With that in mind, Garrett, let's answer some questions. And I know you've been very active in the chat. If you'd like to turn your audio on and give us an update on the most common questions that folks have had so far, then I'd love to comment on that.
Sure thing. As usual, a lot of personal questions. So let me try to think of if there's any that were common themes. Let's see. Someone was asking if I have somatic tinnitus. Have you had success with this package? I think it was Tim.
Great. Yeah, so two individuals from today's presentations, Tamara and George, had some degree of somatic tinnitus, and absolutely the tools that are included here can be successful for somatic tinnitus. Absolutely. With any type of tinnitus, we need to get down to the root cause and understand which of these tools should be leaned on more. Potentially, when should we bring in other medical professionals? Just taking that comprehensive view and personalizing the treatment is what's necessary. And that's why we have these 5 audiology Zoom sessions. These are pretty long, extended appointments going straight into what you need. And 5 appointments is quite a lot with someone who really knows their way around tinnitus. So I would recommend giving this a shot if you have somatic tinnitus or other types of tinnitus as well.
Another question in that vein, someone asks if I have tinnitus and hyperacusis, sound sensitivity, will the tinnitus maskers help with hyperacusis, or do I need something specifically for that? This
program works very well for someone who either has hyperacusis or hyperacusis and tinnitus. This is also referred to as sound sensitivity. About a third of people who are in our program have had or currently have a significant sound sensitivity hyperacusis type symptom. I would say about 10% of people have primarily a hyperacusis problem and then a tinnitus problem alongside it. So wherever you fall into that camp, just know that taking just a really quick snapshot, the treatment for hyperacusis, how it would be different from, say, the bundle that you used. We would use the sound therapy in a targeted way for your hyperacusis. And then we would also bring in some earplugs, strategic use of certain kinds of earplugs that we can guide you on. If you work with our team and you have that knowledge, then I believe you will succeed with hyperacusis, which, by the way, can get significantly better to the point of it's nearly gone or not a problem at all. So have hope for hyperacusis. Great questions coming in. For those who are in the chat, you can see I just added the link to get started and review the offer here for the Tinnitus Triumphs bundle. And we also did send it over as an email. So most of you should have received an email and potentially a text message if you're in the United States, with a link as well where you can open that up and check out what we have to offer. If you have any questions, now's a great time. You have multiple audiologists, including myself, who are here to answer. Bia, thanks for your question. Nice to see you here. Bia asks, if tinnitus was caused by anesthetics, will tinnitus maskers help? I want to check something real quick to make sure I'm answering this question appropriately. So certain types of anesthetics, whether that's through IV, whether that's to manage pain, if your tinnitus was caused by something medical, whether that be in this case potentially medication or a health condition, even going through a significant health problem, we know that tinnitus can appear in those situations. It's either one of 2 factors. One is because it had some changes to the ear through an ototoxic, ear toxic medication, or a second because it puts stress on the nervous system, puts stress in the central nervous system where tinnitus resulted as an effect. Usually it's the latter. The anesthetics are rarely, if ever, and I don't believe they are, toxic to the ear. So it's most likely the latter, which is stress in the central nervous system, in which case this program is excellent for that type of tinnitus. And I do believe you will succeed and improve because there's nothing permanently broken in the system, right? So if tinnitus can appear, but nothing permanently changed, then we can also improve through the use of everything you learned about in the bundle. All right, we have some more questions coming in.
In the Q&A, someone's asking about their tinnitus changing, fluctuating. The question is, will it ever be consistent? But I think you could also comment on how tinnitus maskers help for fluctuating tinnitus.
Excellent. Thank you, Kay. Thanks for your question. If your tinnitus changes sounds, meaning it's dynamic. Sometimes it sounds like electrical noise, sometimes ringing, other sounds come in and come out. Yes, it can become consistent. Most often what we see is in the beginning, let's say stage 1 or stage 2 of the 4 stages, that there's a lot of complexity to the sound. The sound can vary a bunch. And this is not always the case, but when it happens, it's usually in those first 2 stages. When things stabilize, you're likely to experience, following a program like ours, when things stabilize, you're likely to experience less variability in the sound, less fluctuation, and gradually lower volume. So absolutely, it can become more consistent. Just give it time and understand that this is not likely a days to weeks type program, but a multi-month type program. And if you have that frame of reference in mind, then yes, it can become more consistent. Calm down. If you guys have questions, let us know in the chat. And if you guys want to review the offer here for the Triumphs Summit, you know where to go. It's called treblehealth.com/offer. That's where you can find the information we are speaking about today. Bia, totally hear your comment there. I think you're right on the money. You're spot on. George, thanks for the shout out. Appreciate you sharing your story. All right, Annie, how effective are the maskers with tinnitus and mild hearing loss? Excellent question. The devices that we use are in the core devices that we use for the tinnitus maskers are the WideX devices. They're hearing devices that can be programmed either for tinnitus or tinnitus with hearing loss. As I said earlier, there's an option to add on hearing clarity. And essentially what that means is if you're noticing difficulty with hearing, perhaps you've been diagnosed with a mild high-pitched hearing loss in both ears, very common. The maskers absolutely can be effective for you. They're designed for, most of the people who work in our program have tinnitus with a mild hearing loss. So yes, absolutely. If you're noticing significant trouble with hearing, and you've been diagnosed with a mild hearing loss, let's say, yeah, I am having trouble hearing my spouse or my grandkids or at work, then you can sign up for the program and we'll be able to discuss whether the standard offer, which you see here, makes sense given your case, or if you wanted to experiment with getting hearing clarity, we do have that add-on feature, which essentially is the same hardware, the same look and feel of the device, but is designed for hearing loss that is affecting your day-to-day functioning as well. Thanks, Annie.
I would also just add, Ben, that if it's truly mild loss, and maybe that's just on the hearing test and it's not really a day-to-day impact, we have a lot of success with those types of patients because oftentimes the ears are just needing a little more of that high pitch information. The brain is just needing more of that high pitch sound. So giving a little bit of that sound back, plus the tinnitus masking, sound therapy, plus the sessions with the audiologist, I'd say those are some of our most successful patients.
Great, we see some nice comments in the chat here. Will asked a question to George. George is helping you out there, Will. Thank you, George. Pamela, thanks for being here. Appreciate the love. Annie, you're welcome. Thanks for asking the question. Any more questions, please let me know. I'm excited to help you out. I know Garrett is here as well. Garrett, can I ask you a question? We have a question coming in from MM. M asks, how do you do a hearing test? And is a hearing test used as a part of the bundle here?
Sure, I can take that one. So we don't do diagnostic hearing tests because we're fully online, fully remote care company. So what we'll have people do is to have a full hearing test in person locally. That'll be the diagnostic portion of the process. Most people come to us with a hearing test or maybe even a second opinion before that. So we have people email us the test, we interpret the test, we use the test to program our devices, and we'll do the counseling sessions and the therapeutic part of things. But for the hearing test, it's done locally near you at an audiologist. Other places can do hearing tests too. Actually, Costco or Sam's Club, believe it or not, now do hearing tests. So that would be the answer to that one.
Yep, very important that we know, number one, there's not a physical cause of your tinnitus that, say, for example, oh, earwax. Oh, it's been 2 months. I never got my ears looked at. Turns out it was from earwax, right? That's pretty rare, but of course we want to rule that out if it's something like that. Additionally, we use the results of the hearing test to program those devices. So it is very important, and we make sure we have that done in person at a local clinic, which we can send you to if you sign up with us, to make sure we have had that hearing test. If you've already had a hearing test within the last year, then we can use those that data as well. All right, so George, you wanted to ask, how common does a fear of noise or hearing loss become among the tinnitus patients you've seen? It was a big component of my experience with tinnitus. George, I would say that what can happen is we get scared of something making the tinnitus worse. Sometimes it feels like, okay, I'm holding on to this tinnitus is really challenging, but what would be even more challenging is if a loud noise triggered my tinnitus and it got worse. Then I don't know if I could hold on. So that is a fear that is pretty common, and it has us essentially sort of grasping or holding on to not putting us at risk of getting things worse. Well, what often happens is people become too risk averse. Oh, I don't go out anymore. Oh, I don't go to restaurants. Oh, I don't walk on the sidewalk because a loud car horn might surprise me. All of those fears are valid and acknowledged, but with strategic use of earplugs, with understanding of safe listening levels, knowing that it's very unlikely for tinnitus to sort of spike from a sound like that and be a sort of baseline change. So yeah, I would say that it's something that we work through with a large number of our patients. Shout out to Deborah. Deborah says, always great to interface with the Treble Health team, getting results with the maskers and the Sound Oasis. Happy to hear that, Deborah. Deborah says, thanks for everything you provide. You're welcome. All right, so Kevin asks, I received my tinnitus maskers in early May. Kevin's wondering, has neuroplasticity started then? And what's the timeline for neuroplasticity? So just to define that term, neuroplasticity is the ability for your brain to change, to learn. Now, in our case, we're promoting healthy neuroplasticity. We're promoting positive neuroplasticity with this treatment package, with the bundle. Using the tinnitus maskers on the ears, that sound therapy, yes, it absolutely promotes the reduction of tinnitus, and it's using neuroplasticity. So I would say, just keeping it simple, Kevin, if your tinnitus has shifted, then yes, that's an example of neuroplasticity that you can observe and you're aware of. There's probably some subtle things that you're not aware of that are happening behind the scenes. You know, the brain is very vast and complex. But if you're noticing changes, then yes, that's an example of neuroplasticity already. All right, guys, so we have 50 more minutes here live. I just want to give a shout out to treblehealth.com/offer, the Tinnitus Triumphs bundle, something that we created really over the last number of years, taking the best tools, techniques, expert professional care, and putting them into one bundle that you can get started for $262 a month for 12 months at 0% interest. Again, we have this 45-day no risk trial. If you want to give this a shot, the best way to do that is to sign up. You can click the link in the chat, or you can head over to our website, treblehealth.com/offer. That's where you can review the details of what's provided, and you can make a payment for the $262. What happens after you do that is you'll schedule a welcome call with someone from our team. It could be me, it could be Garrett, it could be another team member from Treble Health. We'll review all the details of your case, confirm everything, confirm the shipping address, select the color for the tinnitus maskers, understand a bit more about your unique case, just double confirm that this is the right program for you. And then we'll get you started sending the devices out to your home, scheduling you for the appointments, discussing if you've already had a hearing test, make sure that gets over to us, we can use it. If you haven't had a hearing test, then we'll recommend a local partner clinic to get a hearing test from. And that's essentially how the next steps work. From there, you get to use this whole system for 45 days, making sure it's the right fit for you, making sure you're already seeing improvements and results. Someone asks, what is hearing clarity? Hearing clarity essentially means that the tinnitus maskers we have on the screen here, that they have an option to upgrade them to be excellent for tinnitus, but also excellent for hearing and hearing loss. So hearing clarity means these are functioning as devices that are designed for hearing loss, essentially hearing aids for hearing loss, as well as for tinnitus treatment. The design, the sort of hardware, the physical look and feel of the Widex devices that we utilize, they can be programmed just for tinnitus. They can also be programmed for tinnitus and hearing loss. So depending on what you have, that's how we would order them. So I would say don't worry about it too much right now. If you start with us in our welcome call, we're going to review everything and then help you decide whether you're just having a problem with tinnitus or you're also having an issue or a problem with hearing and clarity of understanding speech. If it's the latter, then there is that option to add the hearing clarity. And for those who have not headed over to the link yet, you should have that in your email as well. I believe we just emailed that out about 15 minutes ago, where you can review the Tinnitus Triumphs bundle, what's included. You can even get started by claiming the offer right there on your mobile phone or your computer. George, thanks so much. Appreciate you being here. Have a good night. Be in touch soon. Janet, we do have a specific brand of earplugs that we recommend for hyperacusis. I want to send you an email. I want to send you a message right here in the chat. If you could please send an email to that email address and ask that very same question, I'll make sure we get back to you with a link that you can get those earplugs for hyperacusis through Treble Health. Or if you just want to respond to me with your specific email, I'll make sure that gets done as well. Denise says, you guys and gals were my lifesaver a year ago. My doctor is now recommending Treble Health to her patients after you helped me so much. Thank you, Denise. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing better. MM asks, can you sleep with the maskers? You could sleep with the maskers if needed. Yes. Most people don't. Most people rely on the sound machine or the sleep headband. All right, we have 10 minutes left all here together. So if you haven't already, ask your question. This is why we're here to help. We are offering this Tinnitus Triumphs bundle especially for you. Rodney asks, can the items be customized or do you have to buy everything? I don't think I need the sleeping headband or the sound machine. Great question. So Rodney, if you make the deposit, if you go ahead with the 262 and you'll have that welcome call with us, we can take away items, specifically the real physical products, the sleep headband and the sound machine. If you wanted to remove those from the bundle, then we can do so. Collectively between the two, they go for around $100. So essentially we would take $100 off of the final cost of the bundle so that you wouldn't be sent the sleep headband or the sound machine because you wouldn't need them. If you have any further questions on that, Rodney, please ask for confirmation. We do sell the earplug. We do sell the hearing protection, the earplugs as well. If you sign up for the program, then let's go ahead and figure that out on the welcome call. If you are not signed up for the program here and you don't have a welcome call scheduled, please leave me your email. Just you can reply to me personally here in the chat with what you're looking for and your name so that I can go ahead and respond with the earplugs for you. This program is available for individuals in the United States. There was a question about Australia. We do not work outside of the United States at this time. That includes Australia. And we do, of course, our YouTube channel has a lot of free videos, but in terms of our service and this specific bundle, it's only available for individuals in the United States at this time. Jeff, nice to see you again. Jeff asks, can you cover the importance of using the Tinnitus Functional Index questionnaire during our treatment with Treble Health? Absolutely. So the Tinnitus Functional Index is the best way to measure tinnitus. I learned this when I was a resident in San Francisco at the hospital, that every time a patient comes in, or at least every 3 months, let's measure the Tinnitus Functional Index to get a quantifiable number on how their tinnitus is doing. What that provides is a way for us to track your progress, because it might be hard for you to know how much better things are getting other than your feeling. But when we track the numbers, it's a comprehensive view of how this tinnitus is affecting your ability to relax, your sleep, your concentration, your stress, and a few other subcategories. And then we can run statistical analysis to track the progress over time and let you know what severity of tinnitus you have, given how long you've been in the program. So like we mentioned earlier, the average patient improves that tinnitus functional index score by 20 points. And this is a scale out of 100. Most people start at a 60. That's the average starting score. So this says out of the 250 people in our study, the average improvement in 3 months was 33% improvement. So that's pretty significant if you think about it, given that we know the timeline for tinnitus is often 6 to 12 months to get those maximum results. Rogers, Garrett's answering your question there in the Q&A. Thanks for asking. Jim, I saw your comment there. Let us get back to you via email. Thanks for letting me know your contact there. And we have 6 more minutes here. Just a reminder, if you are interested or on the fence about this program, head over to treblehealth.com/offer to sign up and learn more about how to get help. You can review the specific offer. And if you have questions, this is the right place to ask us right here on the call. Kay, nice to see you here. Kay asks, how long do most people wear the tinnitus maskers for? On average, about 8 months. And it's usually in both ears, usually wearing them for a majority of waking hours. Again, they're helpful, so having them in feels beneficial. And then using them consistently until you reach the stage 4 would be the recommendation. So Kay, just to follow up on your question, after the period of time of using the maskers, people stop using them and they don't need them. So that's really the goal, is just like you might go through a rehabilitation for your knee, you would use a knee brace or whatever the doctors recommend. At the end of this, you wouldn't need the brace anymore. You can be back to functioning. That's what we go for as well. And the tinnitus maskers are used in that way. L asks, does the headband work with Bluetooth? Yes, the sleep headband works with Bluetooth only. Is there a non-Bluetooth option for the headband? There may be, but not through us at Treble Health. It's not something that we found we haven't found something that's reliable in that sense. If you have something, please let me know. Dave, the sessions are recorded here on YouTube under the YouTube live streaming. So you can head over to my YouTube channel and then go check out the live streaming channel. For those who have signed up for the program at the 262, we're glad to get you started, and we're going to make sure that you've scheduled your welcome call, and then we'll be able to have a conversation to confirm your details, get these devices shipped out to you. We're here for another 5 minutes or so. For those who are still on the fence, we'd love to work with you, so just let us know how we can help. Annie asks, if my tinnitus is intermittent, would I use the maskers on days that I'm experiencing very mild to no tinnitus? Annie, that's correct. That if you're experiencing mild to no tinnitus on your good days, for example, then you would either use the maskers at a lower volume level, which you can easily adjust, or you wouldn't use them on those days. It's better to have a one-on-one consultation. Just essentially, we would program the devices with that in mind in your specific case. But hopefully my answer helps you understand the sort of day-to-day. If you're having a very good day, not hearing tinnitus at all, then no, you wouldn't need to use the maskers on your ears. Jeff asks that, Jeff did find some wired headphones, potentially that can be used for sleep. I haven't vetted those myself, so I'm not going to recommend them, but that is noted. Thank you, Jeff. Janet, I would say yes, the maskers make a big difference in accelerating habituation. If you're wondering, do I actually need these because I don't really notice tinnitus too much? That's a little tricky. If it's not an issue at all in your life, then no, you wouldn't need to go through a treatment. If you have tinnitus that's bothering you at least partly during the daytime, then yes, I believe this type of program would work to help further reduce that tinnitus. I've certainly seen moderate cases become mild cases. So in that sense, I would say yes, this would still work. Kimberly says, and I believe Kimberly is working with Treble Health already, correct? Yes. So Kimberly says, holy guacamole, I just put the tinnitus maskers in as an experiment. Her first appointment with Treble Health is tomorrow, and I cannot hear the tinnitus because the sound therapy is in the ears. All the brown quote, all the brown noise I was listening to online for the last 3 months did not come near to this, and it's the first 3 minutes. I think I'm going to cry from relief. Kimberly, I'm really happy to hear that. If you wanted to share your story, you're welcome to. If you wanted to, unmute yourself and share to the 30 of us that are here live, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we're excited to have your appointment coming up tomorrow, I believe, where we can adjust them and hopefully get you set up for long-term relief. So thank you so much. And let me know if you wanted to share or have any other follow-up questions for me. Thank you for sharing that, and really happy to hear that. Kimberly, welcome to the stage. There's about 30 of us here, so it's a pretty intimate group. Share with us what's been going on for you. What's live for you right now?
Okay. Yeah, I was deafened by my dentist. So it was sudden hearing loss 3 months ago, and it was like overnight. And I begged for steroids, but I didn't get them in time. He didn't believe me. And I've just been like so down. I don't even want to get into it. And then I found you guys on YouTube, and I thought, if there's anything that's going to work, this is going to be it. So I ordered it like 3 days ago. I'm about to travel. You guys went over on a board to overnight them to me and get them to me. And I just put them in. And I cannot believe I don't hear that sound. I don't understand it. I have been using my AirPods, listening to white noise, to brown noise, to pink noise, like all day, every night, just trying to get through the day, you know, and I'm just like shocked. I'm just shocked. If this is the beginning, I didn't even want to have hope anymore because it's dangerous.
Well, you're here, and this is a great sign. And you didn't give up, and that's what matters.
Yeah. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. Mhm.
And the right ear, which is the one that has the masking in it that I can hear, that is the that also is supposed to have sound boosting, but I don't even know how to do that yet because my first appointment is tomorrow at 7. I mean, I just opened them up 15 minutes ago, and the masking alone was worth every dime. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to hear that. And from all of us, we acknowledge the hardships. We acknowledge that you're experiencing relief, and like you alluded to, it's important to take this as a win, but also realize there's some work ahead, and we have time that we need to continuously use them, follow the recommendations, but we've got you, and I'm really happy for you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Jeff also says in the comments, you deserve the relief, which is so true. All right, folks. Well, we're wrapping up. We did have another great comment from Mike. Mike, let me read your comment because I just couldn't close the Zoom here without reading it. Today was my first day wearing the mask. Mike, I assume you're a patient with Treble Health because you're mentioning that you're working with one of our audiologists, Dr. Brienne. So Mike says, today was my first day wearing the maskers. I want to just point out that I underestimated the benefit of working one-on-one with an audiologist. I worked with Dr. Brienne, and she provided great detail in reviewing my hearing test and correlating the devices to match my hearing loss profile. Brienne is awesome. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And similarly, you're right at the beginning of this, so follow our recommendations and continue to see the improvements over time. Thank you so much. All right, great. Well, thank you everyone for being here. We've officially wrapped up the Tinnitus Triumphs Summit. As you know, this is something we really enjoy doing. It's a win-win-win. It's great for you. It's great for the guests who get to share their story. And it's beneficial for us and our team at Treble Health, as some of you will be inspired and hopefully decide to work with us or give us a try and get some relief from tinnitus. So thank you all so much and have a wonderful night. If you have any questions, you know how to find us. And it's been a pleasure to be your host. Good night, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.